Hello, Fred Woodford. I'm with the Cooperative Extension Service at Purdue. I am the Director of Purdue Pesticide Programs. When we look at a lot of our lakes and ponds, reservoirs, you will notice that in many cases the weeds have gotten out of control, in which they've actually degraded the environment, making it less suitable for wildlife that live in and on the water, and degrades from in terms of fishing, swimming, boating, and other uses. So many times the problem is so bad, so severe, that we're going to use herbicides and algicides to control the problems that we see there. But instead of just making the application, it's pretty important to realize that every pond, every body of water is different. And part of that, of handling and dealing with problem weeds and algae, is to also appreciate the fact that these are very sensitive environments that we are working in. And it requires us to do a little bit extra in making some serious observations of what is existing at the pond, not only at the first treatment, but as we make additional treatments over the year. So in this video, we're going to show basically one of our commercial applicators sharing with us the observations that he's making on a pond that he has been managing for a number of years. Let's now go to a pond managed by Will Hayes of Bellingers and get some ideas and tips of what he does when he goes to a site to evaluate a pond.
One of the obvious things now, we got this pond, and are we fixing to make a visit around the edge, some of it?
Absolutely. So right off the bat, I've noticed some brittle naiad up here, which is pretty standard for this pond.
Okay.
I try to keep the beach areas or the active areas clean. And as we turn the corner, there's a little bit more. And then right here is some American pondweed.
And so this is one of the things you're going to capture a picture of?
Absolutely. I do it very passively. Just drive by real quick.
Okay. Now that can be a good plant or a bad weed?
It can be evasive if you let it go.
Okay.
Some aquatic life likes to eat it, and frogs tend to like to sit on it if they can,
okay,
like little ones. Now, if you notice here, there's a lot of stagnation on the surface.
Yeah. You
can see the lack of a better term, the scum of the water. It's just a slight sheen of particulate, and that is just basically due to lack of surface activity.
Okay.
Is what I've seen. I also note that the water level is down. You can see how the shoreline.
Yeah.
You can see the dead vegetation and where the new vegetation starts. I usually document that just to keep a record of our water level. And like I said, I just make note.
Do you ever make recommendations in terms of to do certain things outside of the water that would help or not?
Absolutely. The way I approach it is that the entire environment around the pond is what contributes to the health of it. So I do prefer to see cattails and aquatic vegetation in and around the perimeter at some point, just to help absorb the nutrients that are inflowing into the pond. Normally at the inlets, if there are any inlets, I do suggest planting some sort of plant there just to, like I said, help reduce the nutrients going into the water. Now back here is a good fishing spot. There's a lot of dead willow branches back in this corner. This is where the bass like to hang out. When I started treating this pond 6 years ago, the entire pond was surrounded by willow. And so I went through and I sprayed this entire edge for an access point and then hand removed them. And then over the years, more and more have fallen into the water, but we leave those there for fish habitat.
Okay, very good.
So, and it's as simple as that.
Will made a number of interesting observations as he worked around the perimeter of the pond. One of the key was how had the pond changed since the last time he'd been there. You noticed about the water was much lower. He had some stagnant areas, observations that he could use to help him in managing that pond. He was also made lots of observations on the weed compositions.
what was there that hadn't been there before, had they grown, expanded, were they remained the same. And lastly, which is always an important thing to remember, he focused on his management goals. What was he being paid to do? So apparently it had to do with improving fish and wildlife habitat, keeping the beach clear where people could put their boats in. And so if you looked at this, then he's trying to manage it both from wildlife and recreational uses, which is the goal for many of these types of properties.
So what we tried to demonstrate in this particular video was the importance of knowing each pond, reservoir, lake. That they're each unique, they have different goals, different uses, and to be able to make good observations which allow us then to make better management decisions for that body of water. If you're interested and would like to watch more videos, we have them at the following website that appears on your screen. And for those that are really interested and want a lot more detail, we have a full course, e-learning course that you can take, also available on the website that's on the screen.